So now we can see that Unity added a bunch of files, all kinds of weird files here to my directory. Actually, it added 4 folders, and the first one is assets, which is going to contain all the assets that I'm going to need to build my little Unity project. The second one is library, which is basically just a lot of files that Unity keeps track of in order to know like what will keep things cached for performance and a bunch of other stuff that we really don't care about. And there's project settings, which contains files that keep a record of your project settings. So actually you can see that these more or less correspond to project settings inside Unity. If you go up to edit project settings, these are basically the same things. Okay, so that's what that contains. And then there's this temp file or folder which contains temporary files. Among others, this Unity log file, which is a small file that Unity uses to actually lock your project so that no one else can work on it simultaneously, which is kind of a big problem sometimes when collaborating with Git. So in reality, the only 2 folders that we are interested in sharing with your collaborators is this assets and project settings folder. The other 2, library and temp, we don't care about, and they might mess things up with our collaborators if we choose to sync them. What we want Git to do is to not track these 2 folders. So you might remember that I mentioned the git ignore file before, and it's this text file that basically just contains specifications of what files that we want Unity to ignore. And when I created this project at GitHub, it supplied me with kind of a default git ignore file here, which it's got some files that it's going to ignore for example Eclipse, which is an IDE, Visual Studio, also an IDE, and a bunch of other stuff. And it's all fine and dandy, but actually I don't really care about all these things. I want to ignore some files that has to do with Unity. So what I could do is I could delete all this, and you will actually see here that GitHub should actually keep track of the fact that I deleted a bunch of lines inside my git ignore file. Yep, here we go. If I click on that, you can see delete, 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 all those lines, don't need them. What I do want though is a git ignore that's going to work with my Unity. So I could do this by hand, but I'm going to take the easy way out and find one on the internet. So I'm just going to search for Unity git ignore, and this first one here is pretty good. So it looks like this. It's quite simple actually. It's just some files that we wanted to ignore. So I'm gonna select it all, copy it, and then just paste it into my git ignore file. It should be said that this git ignore file it can sometimes cause problems. If you're on a Mac computer, you probably can't see it in Finder because Mac hides .gitignore files. And if you're on Windows and you don't have this file, you might have a hard time actually creating it. So I'm not going to show you how to do now because it depends on your platform, but you can go ahead and Google, for example, Windows create gitignore, and this will give you the answer. And also on OS X, show .files, and you will get a good guide. You can maybe even go like show gitignore, and it's also so it's pretty simple. Use Google as your friend. Right. So now I have my Unity gitignore. So hopefully that's gonna try to you can actually already see that Unity is now ignoring all the files inside the library and the temp folder. So I actually already got what I wanted out of this. In addition, if you want Unity to play nice with Git, there are some settings that you have to edit, and it's inside here, project settings and editor, and here under version control you should set mode to, well, I like visible meta files, and asset serializations set to force text, and that's basically it. Most likely you should also go into file, no, let's see, where is it, edit, preferences, and inside external tools, no, inside packages, here we go, repository should be set to external if it isn't already. And once that's done, you're all set up, so you can go into GitHub and you can create your first commit. Added Unity project and proper git ignore, and commit to master. Okay, and then I'm going to sync it. And if I go onto GitHub here and just refresh the page, you can see that the folder was added, and it's also added this project settings folder. So, but what about my assets folder? I mean, it's there. Why wasn't it added? Well, the case is that it's actually empty, so Git doesn't care about it. But let's try to do something about that. So in here I have a scene. I'm just going to save it inside assets, call it my scene, and inside my scene I may want, for example, just some kind of weird cube, and let me just attach a script to it. New script, and there we go. And actually I created JavaScript, which I don't want to do, so let me try that once again. New script, C#, View controller, and I can already see now in GitHub that it added this cube controller file and it added the scene file, and probably if I save the scene now, it might also add some more files, but it didn't, which is fine. So yep, and you can see that this is how the cube controller file looks. Good, everything looks fine. I can create one more commit and say added a cube and a small script. Commit it and sync it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just be able to move the cube around just for kicks, basically. So inside my Unity project, I'm going to double click this cube controller, and I can actually just with one line I can just make it move left and right. So if I type transform translate input get axis horizontal times transform right, and then times time delta time in order to account for the frame rate, and save that, I can not only see here in like GitHub or this GitHub app, I can see that I added this new line to cube control the CS. And if I go into Unity, I can try that out and see, yep, if I press A and D, I can move my cube from left to right, or the arrow keys. Magnificent. Good, so now that I'm really happy with my awesome Unity game, I'm going to commit it to my local repository, and then afterwards I'm going to push it to the remote. So edit keyboard input cube, commit to master, and sync it up. So now you might be sitting and wondering, that's very nice, all this, but what does it actually have to do with collaborating with my team members? Well, let's just try to see how, once that you've got this up and running, how one of your team members might use this. So the first thing we have to do is, inside the repository, I need to set up a collaborator so we can, well, collaborate on this. So I'm going to go into settings and under collaborators, and here I can just type a username. So I would need the username of who I wanted to collaborate with. In this case, I just want to collaborate with a small test account I made for this, so it's called Adam Schrenemann test. So add collaborator. Right. So once that's done, this user can actually also work on the repository. So let's see how that works. So now I'm just going to change into a remote desktop session on a different computer here. So on this computer I am logged in with that Adam Schrenemann test account here. You can see I have some local repositories already, and I also have some repositories on GitHub, and whoa, that it popped up there because I was added as a collaborator. So now all I have to do to start actually collaborating on this project is just press clone, and it's going to clone to some kind of default directory here. You can see in here, C uses Adam documents GitHub my Git demonstration. I think you can also customize this somehow. So now that I cloned that, it's down here under my local repositories, and I can once again right click and I can go open in Explorer. And you can see that it's copied all the files from the remote repository down to my computer. So I have exactly the same files now as the other user here, except for the ones that Git is ignoring, which is a good thing, because otherwise I might get in trouble actually. So, but I won't. So that's really good. And in this case, I could go in here and, for example, add a new feature to the script. I could say, hey, why not also be able to move like up and down, for example. So I do like this, translate, and put get access vertical times transform up times time delta time, and save that. And inside GitHub I can see my new change. So I can go edit vertical movement, if it register that. So now I'm going to commit these changes, and this is all from another computer than what I started on, right? It's another user. So edit vertical movement and commit that to master, sync it to the remote repository, and now that it's synced I can go back to my previous user on this computer. So this is actually the computer I was working on before, and if I go into my GitHub app, I can see here that I'm behind by one commit because my good friend myself added a new commit. So I can press sync, and it's gonna download that commit, and it's gonna update my file system as well. So if I go back to Unity, I can see that the file kube controller is actually updated with this new line, and now I can move the cube up and down as well as left and right. Okay, so that's about it for collaborating with Git and also with Unity. There's a lot more to it, but I'm out of time now. Bye bye.